Great, thank you, Aoife, and welcome everybody to our Burns event. I'm Bridget Wieruski and I'm one of the vice chairs of Causeway. And I'd like to welcome you to our networking event. This is all about celebrating with our Scottish members and Irish members and our friends who aren't yet members, and giving us a chance to catch up, to chat, and to hear from some of our guests. We are recording this event. We will not be recording the breakout rooms. It's just the plenary that is being recorded. And a lot of this event is about networking. So we hope that you'll be able to come off camera. If you can't, that's fine, but do come off mic when we go into breakout rooms, which will be happening in a little while. We're going to have guest talks from Sandy McPhee, who is Deputy Head of the Scottish Government Office in Ireland, and from Lisa Marie Joyce, who is the Vice Consul to the Consulate General of Ireland to Scotland. So we are delighted to have them along. And I'll also be having a chat with one of our Scottish members who lives in Ireland, Brian Kavanagh. And we'll, as I said, we'll have a chance to break into networking groups. But first of all, I'd like to pass over to the chair of Causeway, David Greenlees, who will tell you a little bit about Causeway and give his welcome to you to this event. So David, over to you.
Bridget, thanks very much. I'd like to extend a warm welcome, certainly a Rabbie Burns welcome to you for joining us for another Causeway event. And with this event focusing simply on bringing together our members and guests from both sides of the Irish Sea to build relationships and drive business in these extremely testing times. And of course, let's throw in some poetic spirit as we celebrate Scotland's national bard in the lead up to Burns Night. So our events attract members from across Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland, as well as our dual members of both the British and Irish Trade Alliance and Causeway as well. So for the benefit of our very welcome guests that are on today, let me give you a brief introduction to Causeway. Causeway is a core focus to protect and enhance the trading relationship between Scotland and the island of Ireland and provide an informal business platform that allows businesses to communicate, connect and collaborate. With the lasting COVID-19 crisis and the ramifications post-Brexit, it's even more important that we pull together using the Causeway platform to protect our trade successes and ensure that this trading relationship between Scotland and Ireland is maintained. Since its inception of Causeway over 4 years ago, we have attracted over 2,500 business people to our events. The majority very much a face-to-face experience, which, as we all know, this past year has proved incredibly challenging for this type of engagement. So we've adapted to these changing conditions and have done fantastically well in moving all of our events to an online medium. In fact, we've delivered more events this year, had an increase in attendees, and more than 50% increase in membership, all compared to last year. We really are working towards building a strong network for you. The stronger the network, the more we can all benefit from sharing opportunities and growing our businesses. I'd like to take today to acknowledge the recent publication of the Scottish and Irish bilateral trade review by both governments, which Sandy and Lisa Marie will discuss in more detail a bit later. But just a note to congratulate John Webster, Sandy and all the team at the Scottish Government Office in Dublin, as well as the Consul General of Ireland to Scotland, Jane McCulloch, for driving forward this work on behalf of both governments. We hope Causeway will provide an integral part of this future framework, key to the continued economic partnership between Scotland and Ireland. Now, as we're in Burns' theme this evening, let me attempt to do some of his work justice. So please be ready. Rabbie didn't have many links to Ireland in his life. However, his sister Agnes married and came to live and die in County Louth and there is a monument to the poet in Dundalk. The Burns connection was strengthened with the launch of the Sweet Afton range of cigarettes by Carroll's in 1919, an era when the health implications of smoking weren't really realised. The company believed that a new brand could only be successful in Ireland if it had a Scottish name on the packet. The people of Dundalk were canvassed and opted for the name Sweet Afton, inspired by the monument of Rabbie in the nearby cemetery. The first verse of the poem, inspired by Burns' love for one Mary Campbell, was also printed on the packet and read as follows: "Flow gently, sweet Afton, among the green braes. Flow gently, I'll sing thee a song in thy praise. My Mary's asleep by thy murmuring stream. Flow gently, sweet Afton, disturb not her dream." You just have to love the cigarette marketing back in the day. Absolutely fantastic. Puts the Marlboro man to shame. I wish you all an enjoyable event, and let me now hand you over to Sandy McPhee, the Deputy Head of the Scottish Government Office in Dublin. Thank you very much, and over to you, Sandy.
Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. It's great to be gathered here today to celebrate our national poet. Even though the circumstances are different, the past year I think it's been different to anything we've experienced before. And sadly, that means that our winter festivals such as St Andrew's Day and Burns also have to be celebrated differently. However, it's great that we can still come together and meet virtually. And I commend David, Aoife and Causeway for running this event and then enabling us to do that here today. I'm delighted to be able to join with Lisa Marie to be able to discuss the newly launched joint Ireland-Scotland bilateral review. The review is the result of extensive consultations undertaken by ourselves in Dublin, myself and John Webster, Lisa Marie's office and the Consul General in Edinburgh, and our respective teams in Dublin and Edinburgh. In a series of one-to-one chats and interviews, roundtable discussions and consultation groups, we sought people's views on the priorities for the Ireland-Scotland relationship from stakeholders and friends. There was also an online questionnaire element to the review that was open to the public, where we received over 1,000 responses. So we gathered all of this information and fed that into the report that was published last week. The kind of engagement we got in that exercise really highlights for me the importance that people place on the Scottish-Irish relationship. You know, when you've got more than 1,000 members of the public voluntarily partaking in the exercise, it shows you the goodwill and the engagements there. I'd like to thank Causeway for their input to the review, and also anybody else on the call that's contributed in any way. Thank you very much for that. With everything happening in the world at the moment, with vaccines and the inauguration of Joe Biden, perhaps for the first time in a while, it feels like we can look forward with a bit of positivity. And that's exactly what the review does for the Scottish-Irish relationships. It'll outline the future direction of our relationship for the coming 5 years. And while we know there are challenges, the potential and the opportunities in the relationship are vast, and we hope the review will lift our bilateral cooperation to a new level. The review covers 5 main themes: business and the economy, community and diaspora, research and academia, rural, island and coastal communities, as well as culture. And across those strands of work, there are 40 recommendations that both mine and Lisa Marie's office will be looking to take forward. I'm going to talk a bit more about the business and economy strand, as well as the rural, island and coastal communities work. And you can hear more on the rest from Lisa Marie when she speaks later on. The review reinforces that the role of informal business networks such as Causeway are vital to the Scottish-Irish relationship, and we look forward to working with Causeway and supporting their future endeavours. More widely on the business and economic strands, there's a focus on shared challenges facing SMEs in both countries, be that in import or export markets, or in facing up to the challenges of COVID-19. There's a commitment for a trade conference to be convened later in the year to hear the views of a range of organisations and stakeholders, and the commitment to create a trade task force to further promote links between Ireland and Scotland. Other recommendations in the business and economy area are further cooperation in areas of the wellbeing economy and just transition to a greener economy, as well as in the renewables sector. Moving on to the rural, island and coastal communities strand of work, Scotland and Ireland share a kind of shared geography here, with nearly 20% of Scotland's population and 40% of Ireland's being in rural areas. So there's a lot of scope for crossover of work and collaboration there. Some of the recommendations here include formalising the relationships between the marine institutes in both countries, further collaboration between the forestry sectors, as well as a conference organised in partnership with Údarás na Gaelta and University of the Highlands and Islands to develop joint activities to address the opportunities and challenges presented by living in rural, island and coastal communities. The work of the review will drive the work of the Scottish Government Office in Ireland for the coming years, alongside the Scottish Government Export Growth Plan, in which Ireland is identified as a key market, and our upcoming trade vision. The importance of the Ireland-Scotland bilateral relationship could not be clearer. I believe that the relationship itself has never been stronger, and the review will help to reinforce that. If you'd like to hear any more about that, then please let myself or my colleagues know. We're based out of Dublin, myself and colleagues on the call from Scottish Development International, and we're happy to help in any way we can. And with that, I'd like to thank Causeway for having me along today and hand back to Bridget.
Sandy, thank you very much. And we are delighted to have been part of the bilateral review. I really think this is so important and so exciting for the relationship between Scotland and Ireland, and even thinking of some of the events that Causeway has been involved in the past year. We've had our series of events around growing cities and the climate emergency, and just so many different common interests and things that we can learn from cities across Scotland and Ireland and share, so that we all respond better to those challenges. We've been looking at events around digitising the construction sector, our young professional series of events, and the amount of diaspora, young and of every age, that we are attracting on both sides of the Irish Sea. I think this is just a brilliant time to be part of Causeway, and we hope that with you, our members and our friends, we can continue to do more and more events to help just reinforce that great potential that we have to collaborate across the Irish Sea. Quite excited about all of that and solving a lot of these shared challenges that we have and turning them into opportunities. So now we are going to move to the first of three networking groups. We're going to break you into groups with about, how many people will we have, Aoife, in each group?
There's 4 to 5 in a group.
Yeah, so with about 4 or 5 people. It's self-organised. So imagine you're wandering around in some lovely space that we're using for this event, and you bump into a couple of people and a couple more people join you and you have a chat, but we're just shoving you into a virtual room to do that. What we want you to do in the room is introduce yourselves if you don't know each other. Tell each other what brought you here today, why you're here at this event, and how you think Causeway can help you with your challenges or opportunities, or indeed how Causeway can continue to play a role in fostering these positive relationships between Ireland and Scotland. We'll be in these groups for about 15 minutes. What we'll do when we come back is do a very quick bit of feedback of anything notable that you discussed, or any ideas that you got from Causeway, or anything that you'd like to share. And then we will move on to our next speaker, and then you'll be back into breakout rooms again. But Aoife, if you could do your magic and put us all into our groups.
I will indeed.
See where we all land.
Okay, happy. Is it just me that's back?
No, everyone's back. Yeah. Everyone's on mute.
Can't see anyone.
We're all back. Well, welcome back, everyone. Wow, doesn't 15 minutes go quickly? It did in my group anyway, and we had a really lively conversation. So I'm having a look. How am I on time? Good, fine.
Yeah, we're good.
So can I ask just for a little bit of feedback? We won't go around every group because it would take too long, but I'd love just a couple of people to either put up your hand or just come off mute and let us know something you discussed that resonated, or any ideas or thoughts you had.
Bridget, shall I go?
Thank you, Judith.
What we discussed was tenders, which is probably not a very sexy subject, but it was something that's really important in business. As we go to sort of recovery, public sector contracts will be really important, particularly for SMEs, to win public sector contracts going forward. So James and Lorraine in my group and also Saoirse talked about tendering and the importance of tendering and what skills there are within this group for, I suppose, sharing best possible practice for applying to tenders. So that's my action for this from today already.
Excellent, thank you. And I'm sure there's many that would be interested in how to navigate that public procurement website and doing those dreaded tenders, but so essential. Any other thoughts? Any other things that were discussed? Geraldine?
So, hi everybody, Geraldine from Rabbie. So I usually kind of come on and say something, you know, everyone's like, oh no, I don't want to say anything. But in our group, it was quite a mixed bag of different skill sets and very different angles, everything from, you know, cultural to from Dr. Jane Humphreys to Ross Quayle from Be Positive, who's IT services and a very new member as well. And myself and Lisa Marie from the Consulate as well, which is great to sort of start putting some faces to names. And she was challenging me, saying, I think that your name's on some of the publicity material, so I might have given you a quote, who knows. So it was a while ago. So that was for the Board Beer work that we're doing with Origin Green. It's around verification of sustainability plans. Which is fantastic. It's across the whole of the Republic of Ireland for all of the food manufacturers, and it's been going really well. There's been obviously been ups and downs with kind of the system's been developed, and of course we can't get on site to do audits anymore, so it's a very different kind of kettle of fish at the moment. But hats off to everybody. I think everyone's really kind of adapted into this new world of the remote piece. But I was talking about net zero emissions and saying everyone's been focused on Brexit and COVID, and like really people really need to be engaged with now, thinking about, if you don't have a plan just now, like thinking about how do we get engaged with net zero emissions. It's such a big thing for the future, and we've not really got that long. We've got less than a decade to really make massive strides. So a lot of that is going to be about partnership working, as well as individual companies doing things and like supply chains. And I think that Causeway's maybe got a role to play in that, for helping connect people, or to share best practice in a very similar way that Judith was just saying there about tenders. There's a vast amount of knowledge, I think, within groups. Sometimes the difficult bit is how you pull that out and bring it together. So yeah, just a couple of points from our group.
Great, thank you for that, Geraldine. Can I take one more, just one more, and there'll be a chance for feedback from others a bit later. Who else would like to? Yeah, Patrick. We can't hear you, Patrick.
You hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Right, okay. 2 mute buttons now. Jane came up with the idea, apologies for that. Jane came up with the idea of getting to members earlier and what we can do in terms of university incubators. Jane is not long at a university and is trying to set up her own business. And she said she stumbled upon Causeway. So any way in which we could, I suppose, promote Causeway more amongst younger people, and indeed with the universities, which I think you have under control via the young professionals. Yeah,
no, a great comment. And our young professionals has been one of the really exciting things that has taken off in the past year. I'll give a wee plug to the young professionals are running an event for everybody, young at heart and a bit older, in February, and it's on startups and entrepreneurships, and that we are hooking in with some of the universities to try and hook into their incubators and you know, people who are at earlier stages as part of that. But that should be a really exciting event as well. So I did realise as well, as I was calling on people, I was only looking at one screen, so apologies if anybody had their hand up and I didn't flip over to the second screen of people as I was calling on people to join in there. But we'll do more of that as the afternoon goes on. But for now, I would like to ask, can we spotlight Brian Kavanagh? And we're going to have a quick chat. So Brian is one of our Scottish members based in Ireland. And Brian, can you tell me a bit about your journey that has taken you from Scotland to working and living in Ireland?
Yes, well, with the name like Kavanagh, there's no guess where my family roots come from. But my wife was keen to move back home. She's from Dundalk, and we moved in 2008 with a very young family to set up in a business coaching franchise called Action Coach 2 weeks before the banks were de facto nationalised in the state. So it's been a bit of a shall we say, a torrid journey, but we are staying in the place we wanted to stay. For those of you who are of a historical interest, we're 4 miles from Faughart, which is the birthplace of St Bridget. We'll be celebrating in a couple of weeks' time. It just happens to be the patron saint name of our current co-host here. And it's also the Battle of Faughart was the last time Scotland had any influence in Irish history, when Edward Bruce was defeated by the Hiberno-Norman army, and he's buried on Faughart, and that was over 800 years or 700 years ago. So the place has got a close claim to fame. My wife and I run our own mentoring and coaching consultancy from the house in the Cooley Peninsula, and we joined Causeway because we've got mostly a public sector, not-for-profit sector background. It was quite good to be involved with people who've got commercial experience and just understand the wider business practices and build connections. And when you're running a small business, you know, 2 of you, 3 of you, it's good to get the networks and the experience. The final point, I guess, is I'm back and forward to Scotland a lot, both virtually and physically, because I also chair a small SME in Scotland. So I find Causeway a really good way to develop my education understanding of the commercial sector, build networks, and also find people who I can get advice and guidance from. So it's a very, very valuable resource for me, and I really enjoy being part of it. So thank you very much, and look forward to continuing to engage with you both. Bye now.
Great, thank you very much, Brian. And we already heard about the Burns connection and County Louth, or the Agnes connection.
Yes, it's funny that it's actually a house in Knockbridge, which would be a townland literally on the border. And there's a place called Stephenstown's Pond, which is being developed into a wonderful outdoor centre, full of art and full of wildlife beauty. So it fits perfectly some of the Burns messages that we're going to hear about later on today.
Excellent, thank you. And Brian and I will also, we're co-hosting an event, aren't we? Very close to St. Bridget's Day.
We are indeed.
We're hosting an event on the 4th of February, and that is all about goal setting and growth mindset. So we thought we sometimes start January full of enthusiasm and commitment to this is what I'm going to do. And there can be a little bit of a dip around the end of January, beginning of February. So I thought that would be a good time to have a little session of this to reinvigorate us all on goal setting and growth mindset. So looking forward to hosting that with you, Brian.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you, Bridget, and learning all the things I need to learn.
Excellent. So thanks for that. We are going to move now into our second breakout. And this is much the same as the first, but you'll be with a different bunch of people. So what we're trying to do today is just get us meeting and chatting to a whole range of people. So once again, it's a bit of a chat about what brought you here and what you think the potential of Causeway is, how we can develop Causeway, and any ideas or thoughts that you have. So Aoife, I'll let you do the necessary of putting us into our rooms.
Yeah, no. Welcome back, everyone. Just waiting for everyone to rejoin.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's everyone now. I think a couple of people have dropped off. So yeah. Over to you, Bridget. You're on mute.
I promised myself I would not do that this time, but there you go. One of these days I'll get through a whole event without. Of course, you're the way to make sure you don't do it is you stay off mute the whole time, but that can have other repercussions. So yeah, again, we had a great lively conversation in the group I was in, but it would be good to hear from just take a couple of comments from people on what you discussed, who you met, what you learned, or any thoughts you had on how Causeway can help us all to collaborate more. I'm going to start on the second screen this time. I'm going to be brave. So would anybody like to either just come off mute or raise your hand and I'll call on you.
Ross, would you like to say a few words as our newest member?
Yeah, sure, no worries.
Say who you are and yeah.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, actually, it was a really interesting conversation with Sean Fallon and Patrick Norris. So it was interesting, especially from my point of view, Sean's role within the Celtic Foundation. I used to work for a football club in Glasgow, and it was interesting to kind of hear some of the things about how performance can affect the kind of the income coming in, even though it's not directly attributed to your role. So I found that very interesting, and certainly with both Patrick and Sean, just really to hear how kind of business is performing, because I think everybody at the moment is having very, very different struggles and having to adapt and make slight adjustments and do things a little bit differently. And I think it's just interesting to hear how people are kind of coping with that across the board. And also from a personal point of view, being very new, obviously having just joined the Causeway today, everyone I spoke to so far has been fantastic and really friendly. So that's always a nice start as well.
Great stuff. Just for everyone else, Ross with Be Positive, they just joined today. They're business analysts and they're hoping to expand over to the Irish market. So
thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Great, Ross. Thanks. And welcome to Causeway. And I wonder, with somebody in my group who was in very similar, Alan, would you like to say a couple of words? Because this is your first Causeway event as well.
Yeah, so I haven't quite got to that joining bit yet, but I'm assuming somebody's going to ask me fairly soon. I was explaining to the group that we're a company that's started off in England. I took on the Scottish end of things about 18-19 years ago. That's grown pretty well. We've now gone into Europe and into the States, but we don't have a presence in Ireland, and we've been looking at that. So all of this came around about the same time. An invitation dropped into my inbox, which was interesting. It had a few nice hooks in it about Burns and Ireland, and I have some family links there with a name like Doyle. You won't be surprised. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear the chat that's going on and to hear that your networks like this exist. So delighted to have joined. Enjoy my afternoon so far, and hope it's the first of many.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to keep going just to kind of keep us on track, and we'll have more opportunities to hear from others a little bit later. But for now, we heard from Sandy earlier on, and he mentioned that Lisa Marie would be chatting to us later. So I'd like to call on Lisa Marie, so the Vice Consul based in Edinburgh, the Irish Vice Consul. And Lisa, you're going to say a few words and maybe another mention of the bilateral agreement.
Yes, welcome to you all, and thank you to Causeway for having me on. It's lovely to be back in the fold with you guys, and it's great that we can keep coming together virtually. And I have to say a big thank you to Causeway for keeping us all connected over the last few years, especially online. You've been a really key part in keeping the Irish and Scotland connected, the Scottish people in Ireland on both sides of the sea, and more broadly keeping these friendships and business connections alive during what's been a very trying, difficult year for us all, so we all really appreciate it. And to add to Sandy's remarks on the launch of the review itself, we're really delighted now that our ministers have finally launched the report of the joint bilateral review of Irish-Scottish relations. And as Sandy touched on, there's kind of some key areas in this that the report sets out a series of joint actions for us to take forward in key areas of shared strength between the two countries, which are the business and economic one, the community and diaspora, culture, academic, and then the rural, island and communities, alongside with some government and political relations. But I'll touch a little bit on the community and diaspora links today, but I would also like to really enforce what Sandy said and extend our thanks to the people who took part in the public engagement for this review. And particular to note on behalf of the Irish Consulate here in Scotland, the really rich and varied engagement we had from our community here in Scotland, and Causeway were a very key part in that, both on the community and the business level. And Causeway in general, I think really do, you guys remain a key partner across a really wide and varied network of Irish diaspora and community groups here in Scotland, and your partnerships with other organisations, for example, Scotland GA, are really, they create new avenues and connections for Irish people in Scotland on a daily basis. So it's very valued. And also Causeway's Young Professional series, we're glad to see that going from strength to strength, and it's a great place for the Irish diaspora, the young diaspora here to meet and engage, and reinforces the very important future Irish-Scottish professional relationships and friendships. So I've been very lucky myself to experience and see firsthand here in Scotland the value that Causeway bring as part of that wider range of community and diaspora networks. And, it just opens so many links and doors for the Irish diaspora here, both in the business sphere and creating those key vital business connections, but also more broadly within the diaspora. Your events and collaboration with other groups have been very central and to the vibrant diaspora we have here, and we're glad that that was reflected in the online public questionnaire, which Sandy mentioned. But one of the key takeaways from that questionnaire is that within Scotland, Ireland is most visible through groups like Causeway and through our diaspora presence and our organisations like Causeway. So some other of the key bits on the community sphere in the review, an example of some of the other recommendations that we will be taking forward, they range really from such varied things, but one of the most interesting things I think is we're working on Irish and Scottish diaspora and heritage events with our embassies and consulates in the USA, and we'll also be supporting Donegal County Council to grow and support their outreach in Scotland. And another key thing will be building our celebration of Bridget, which I'm very delighted to see that Causeway will be hosting their own Bridget's Day event this year, held by their own very own Bridget. So Causeway is among one of the many groups here in Scotland this year that will be shining a light on Bridget. I think Scotland GA and Conor na Gaeilge and other groups will also be highlighting the spirit of Bridget this February. So keep an eye out for the consulate as well. We'll be working with Sandy's team, the Scottish Hub in Dublin, and sharing some poetry from some fabulous Irish and Scottish female poets on the 1st of February. So you keep an eye out on our social media pages for that. On Bridget's Day itself. The other thing I was going to touch briefly on was the culture strand of the review, and it came up in one of the breakout rooms there that we were chatting about how the value of culture in the lives of Ireland and Scotland and people at home, and how we all really recognise this, and culture forms a key central part of the review, and the recommendations are very varied on that as well, and touch on many aspects of our shared culture, from I think there's poetry collaborations at school level through our poetry libraries. There's a celebration of Irish-Scottish co-productions in media that's ranging from TG Ceathair and BBC Alba to wider, and increasing participation and inclusivity in sport is another one. So I think as we celebrate Burns, who is one of Scotland's most famous sons, I'd also like to get a plug in for another historical another one of Ireland and Scotland's most shared and loved historical figures is Columcille. We're currently celebrating, we're in the middle of a year-long celebration for Columcille, and the 1500th anniversary of his birth will take place this December. So there's a wide range of activities going on in the cultural sphere for people to keep an eye on throughout the year. And Bord na Gaeilge and Forras na Gaeilge, which are the language bodies of both nations, will be driving forward a lot of commemoration on that front, and we're looking at celebrating a linguistic and cultural, spiritual Deagle and the many influences he has in Scotland and Ireland and wider in the 21st century. So the report touches on that too, and there will be some really fantastic contemporary artistic responses to that, to Columcilla's legacy, which people can watch out for in the coming years. So that's just a little bit on the culture and diaspora spheres of the review, and it's been lovely to catch up with some old faces and to meet some new friends in this group, and I look forward to seeing you all again very soon, hopefully in person.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lisa Marie. Causeway is fortunate to have had the support of the Irish government and the Scottish government since its inception. But you know, it's not just the financial support, which is important, but it's also the involvement that we've had from the Scottish government, from the Irish Consulate, the support that we've had, the people, you know, attending events, helping to make those connections. That has really been brilliant, and an important part of Causeway, I think, an important part of the work that we do. So thank you to Lisa Marie, and also just add my thanks to Sandy for your continued support to Causeway, and long may it last. And I love all that talk about Bridget. I feel all nice and warm now, looking forward to February. And Causeway, while we are obviously business focused, that you know, business and professions, all of these areas overlap. The GAA are members of Causeway, you know, so we have those sporting connections, there's cultural connections. They all do overlap, and the diaspora that we connect with, both the Irish diaspora and the Scottish diaspora, I think are important parts of the organisation. We're going to move into one last networking group. I think for probably just 10 minutes or even a bit less for this one, Aoife, just so that we've time to do our wrap-up things, but just have another, give you a chance to just spend a few minutes, maybe even 8 minutes, just introducing yourselves to another group of people, just so that you make another few connections, which is what we always try to do at these events. So we'll get into those breakout groups, and then we'll have a final little chat and a toast. If anybody wants to get a wee dram ready, we'll do a wee toast at the end. So over to you, Aoife, to get those last breakouts done.
Okay.
Actually, do you know what?
It's recorded, but
You've not missed the dram.
I need to go and get one. You're supposed to have one in readiness.
You can still run and get one.
I'll run and get one.
Welcome back, everyone.
Running to get the dram, that's a very, very important thing. So yeah, so we're going to move to a toast. So I'm going to ask David in a minute to do the toast. I hope I'm not surprising you, David, but I'm sure you'll come up with something really witty and glittering to say.
Oh,
not yet,
big
though.
bottle of whiskey there.
Not
Yes,
yet.
thanks very much. I do have that sitting ready. It's been sitting there since midday. It's been very, very difficult.
I've got Jameson's.
Yay. Oh, the Irish whiskey. Listen, in my group, in one of my groups, we had two comments that I thought were great, and it was, the best thing about Scotland is its whiskey, and the best thing about Ireland is the hospitality, and this mixes them both up together. Now, I found a little Burns poem that I think is very apt. So while David's pouring, I'll read my little Burns poem. I won't try the Scottish accent. So this one is at Wigan's Inn, making me sad and lonely for the fact that we're not all together, and we miss our gathering that we used to have every month in Malone's and everything. So this brought it home for me. So it's quite short. So envy if thy jaundiced eye through this window chance to spy. To thy sorrow thou shalt find all that's generous, all that's kind. Friendship, virtue, every grace, dwelling in this happy place.
Fantastic.
David, over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. That was class. You beat my effort, hands down. I don't have too much to say. I don't actually even have anything overly witty to say either, unfortunately. But I do hope you enjoyed this event. We do try and make these events fun, because effectively that's the way business should be done. It should be fun, it should be easy. And I think that's the whole core of Causeways, of being of that frame. And that's effectively what the feedback we get from people is. This is a real fun environment to be in. We do business, but we have fun as well. And I think that's what that shared culture between Scotland and Ireland actually brings to the table when it comes to Causeway. So now, just before we move on and finish up, just a very quick rallying call. So please, if you are not a member, join us. It really can make a difference. The bigger, the stronger the network, the more you can get out of it. So we will be launching this year a referral program where you scratch our back, we scratch yours. But effectively, it's about landing and hopefully bringing real growth in our membership this year to make that significant difference so that you can have an even better Causeway experience in 2021 and beyond. Now, normally at these Burns events, we raise a glass or a dram with friends, so hope you can stay online as we close the formal part of the event. Grab yourself a drink, stay for a bit of a blether, as they say in Scotland. So generally we have a toast. Normally we have an address from the laddies to the lassies and the lassies addressing the laddies, but without the time today to do that, and it's always a great hoot to do these things, let's just toast to everyone. So if I could just raise my glass to the laddies and the lassies. Cheers all.
Even the lassies.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. So Bridget, do you want to just say a few logistical words to finish off, or are we?
I just texted my daughter, bring me in a whiskey quick, toast. So we'll see what happens. If one...
You know you'll get a slice of toast, don't you?
Oh, I probably Nah, she knows her mother. She knows her mother. So yeah.
No carbs. No carbs past those lips, Bridget.
I would like to thank everybody for coming along. The majority stuck with us for the whole event. The 3 groups I was in were great, and I hope everybody, and I'm sure everybody had the same experience, and we'll keep doing this kind of thing and working hard to keep everybody connected and just to do great things together. So I'm really excited about the potential for Causeway, and I think in particular this year could be a great year for us with your help. I'll ask Aoife just quickly mention our upcoming events so that you don't miss anything. So Aoife.
Yeah, well, as has been flagged, we have a St. Bridget's Day event coming up on the 4th of February. This is going to actually be a morning event, so we're going to trial and see how much interest we can get just before people start their day, just an event on growth mindset and goal setting. So Bridget is going to be key host of that, because Bridget is also a coaching consultant by trade in her day job when she's not working with Causeway. And she's going to do it with Brian Kavanagh, who you heard from earlier, the Scottish diaspora who lives in Louth but has clients across Scotland and Ireland. So it should be a really good motivational event. I don't know, for Scots on the call, in Ireland we celebrate the start of spring from the 1st of February. So it's a spring forward positive motivational workshop. So I hope you can come along to that. We also have on this call, I see Chris Garant and Nick from Invest in I and Eugene from Smith Scott Mullen. We're doing an event specifically for the construction sector. This is going to be the start of a series of events this year. We had the launch in December last year, just as a bit of a fact-finding mission. So now we're going to launch a series of events on the, let me remember, the 11th of February on digitizing the construction sector. So if you're in that sector, whether digital or construction, please get yourself registered and come along to that event. It should be really good. We have loads of inputs from Invest in I, Digital Construction Skills, Enterprise Ireland, a co-clan. So yeah, very welcome to come to that. And we have our young professionals on the call today. I see Saoirse and Finn are here. So they're being fab. They're our new young professionals committee. Causeway's membership last year is really growing with young professionals. So we as an organisation are really keen to support them as much as we can. So we're going to be launching a series of events this year, the first being on the 25th of February. It's going to be focused on helping startups and entrepreneurs, sharing insights and experiences, as well as networking. So please come to that. And finally, I'll stop speaking, but we're going to have a similar event like this, hopefully a bit of crack around St. Patrick's Day, because as I don't know if you saw the news this week, St. Patrick's Day parades have all been cancelled again this year, but we can all come online here on the 16th of March. We've made it the day before Paddy's Day because we know a lot of our Irish members will take that day off and the rest of the week off. So if you can start your St. Patrick's Day celebrations with us on the 16th of March, that would be fab. That's it from me.
Thank you, Aoife. And my whiskey has arrived. There you go. Toast.
Not a slice of toast.
So well done for my daughter. So I can now do cheers.
Cheers, Bridget.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers all.